Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning.
I hear you. Yes.
Excellent. Good to see you. I think we have our panelists here, and the purpose of this is essentially for us to get the panelists acquainted with one another. I found it to be so helpful when panelists know one another. You literally can see one answering the other or finishing the other person's question. And it's always joyful to see people, in that way. So I am so glad that you are all here. On my right is Dr. Adekunle. On my extreme right is Dr. Adekunle. And on the other side, the middle, is Maria Sanchez. Good to have you.
Thank you.
The third one is Professor Tamara, who is joining us from Germany. So it's joyful to see you all. And if you could take a few minutes to get acquainted with one another, I think that's the one I would like you to do. And as soon as you finish with that, so our time will be coming close. We have about 12 minutes. So you have 12 minutes to get acquainted with one another. And on that, I'm gonna keep quiet and let you guys go ahead and do that.
Who's the furthest away? How about that?
Well, I don't know if I will trust my geography, but I think it would be Adekunle or Germany and oh, you're putting me in trouble, Maria.
Didn't mean to.
So it's
Okay. I can start. Maybe if you go with alphabetical order.
Okay.
My name
there you go.
A, so we can use that, and I can introduce myself. I'm Wumi Adekunle, and I'm a university professor in the University of the Gambia. I do research on gender, and apart from research, I do advocacy. I do a lot of outreaches among community women, people that we say live in the countryside, rural areas in Africa, because these people, they have different problems from the ones who have been to school. So we try to meet them, different people at the points of their various needs. For instance, the way you handle gender with people that are educated somehow is different from what you do with people that are non-literate. I mean, in terms of acquiring white education. So for the rural women, we may just try, women who live in the countryside, they have different problems. At times, we need to help them, with value chain, as far as the agricultural produce is concerned, to attract more income and try to advocate to the men to give them more space, try to talk to their young girls on teenage pregnancy, which usually we truncate their education. So the kind of work we do with those ones are different from the ones that are literate. And then when we are talking with the literate ones, we try to look at what is happening in workplaces, how women are marginalized, and how they can go around these, especially when we use research as our advocacy tool, like working on sexual harassment, making them to know the prevalence of sexual harassment and what could be done to ensure that women are no longer victims of sexual harassment. So we do this. So I do research on gender, and we use the research as advocacy tool, with the stakeholders, so that they can you can encourage them to take certain steps. Then being a university professor, I work with young people, and the idea, that they have their self-concepts. When you look at their self-concept, you know that you need to help them with their self-concepts, because many of them don't see themselves beyond, marrying and settle to family life. They don't really see themselves as being able to contribute any other thing to their society. So, you need to do a lot of role modeling, I mean, to get them to start to see themselves as potential, decision makers in the society. So with these people too, we try to do some advocacy and then use the research findings to also encourage them. So this in short is what I do. I mobilize the rural population, women, and I also work with the ones that are literate, in the urban areas and within the academic setting too. So maybe I should allow another person to talk. Thank you. Hello, can you hear me, please? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
I was like, when I did not hear any response, I thought that maybe, you know, our connectivity actually in this part of the world is really very poor. You can never tell when you are no longer connected.
Okay. Amara, would you go, please?
Of course. So real quick about myself, currently located in Germany, in Berlin. However, I am originally from Argentina. I've been a professor also in diversity and inclusion for 6 years at the university, but also really active in the business world. As in Argentina, it's hard to make a living as a professor. So I always held like 2 jobs in a sense, being a full-time employee at a company at Accenture mostly. So there I also did a lot on diversity and inclusion and gender specifically. And now here at Berlin, I work at a company called Expert Lead, where I work specifically on women in IT. So right now what we're doing is mostly working on visibility, on positioning those profiles professionally to show it's also a career option, connecting them with inspiring stories that help them as an example and as a light in a sense to follow on that path. Back in Argentina, it was a completely different area. So when it came to university, I was, of course, making people aware of the different variations within diversity and inclusion. In particular with gender, it is unfortunately, when it comes to gender violence is raising incredibly in the country. So I was confronted several times with harassment within the educational organizations from like between students and professors, which is like really horrific to think that already in those stages, they just not only face it, but normalize it to some sense. So they blame themselves. They feel they need to stay quiet because otherwise they will never make it to the end of a career. So I was working a lot with students, with groups of students who were facing this kind of situations. And then within Accenture, I was working with what it's called in Argentina, the survival startups. So women that are maybe running away from a violent situation that need to make a living now with their families. All they know how to do is maybe prepare home-cooked meals, and we would help them with a group of volunteers to position themselves, leverage free things like social media, and show them how to really make a profit with what they could do so that they could support their families. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what I've been doing when it comes to gender.
Oh, I guess I'll go next. First
Thank
of all,
you so much. All right,
yeah.
go ahead, Maria.
I'm honored to be on this panel with both of you and of course with Dr. Noyer, because the work you're doing is aspirational and inspiring. So thank you for that. I am currently a PhD candidate and I'm studying the influence of media about changing attitudes towards female genital mutilation. So that's my focus, and my work is in the United States, but I intend to extend it globally with my research and the results that I'm getting. I've created a global activist sort of circle already because I've been traveling internationally and interviewing other women. Mostly, it's almost all women who are passionate and involved in the cause of eradicating female genital mutilation. So I'll speak to that during our time together.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to have you all here. And today we're gonna be going to the, we're gonna be starting in about 3 minutes. Essentially, it's gonna begin by Celia, who is here, Celia Daniels, who is gonna tell all of us about SDIG. And afterwards, I'm gonna be asking a couple of questions. And then from there, we're gonna go perhaps having you ask one another a question. And from there, we're gonna transition to the audience questions. And at the end of the exercise, we're then gonna proceed to your final remarks. And then we're gonna move from there. If that's okay, I am here to welcome all of you. And Celia.
Hi, Joseph. How are you?
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. We are so glad to have you here with us today. My name is Celia Sandhya Daniels. I'm an entrepreneur, a human rights activist. I identify as a non-op transgender woman of color. I serve in the executive board for Transcan Work, and also I'm the vice president of Stonewall Democrats for Ventura County in California. I volunteer for SDIG. We'll be taking your questions, excuse me, throughout the session, and we'll give our panelists a chance to answer them at the end of our discussion. SDIG is a nonprofit organization committed to challenge the lack of social justices for all. The existing inequalities and a lack of social justice in our global village have been exposed by the dual pandemic that we have been experiencing since COVID-19. The first turbulence stems the existing infrastructure of racism, and the second COVID-19 have been combined to expose systemic racism, sexism, police brutality, homophobia, and transphobia. We create and encourage individuals and group learning through our posts, panels, sharing members' diverse stories, hosted webinars, and discussions on local and global inclusion, such as today's marking of the International Day of Women. We have done more than 150 panels, seminars, one-on-one engagements as individuals and groups. We ask that if you are a member of SDIG, we welcome you. And if you're not, please join us and be an active member. We have an amazing line of panelists today who are doing a meaningful work in changing our community, country, and across the globe. But before that, I am very much pleased to introduce Dr. Joseph Noe, the founder of SDIG and the president of Systemic Diversity Inclusion, to say a few words and introduce the panelists. Dr. Joseph?
Thank you so much, Celia. I appreciate it. I appreciate the work you've always been doing for us. And today we are marking the International Day of Women. And as Celia said, at SDIG, we believe in fostering activities that bring people together in our quest for peace, equity, and social justice for all. And as today is the day for women, I want to just get us to reflect for a moment on the work during the fourth International Conference in Beijing on September 5th, 1995. The former First Lady Hillary Clinton highlighted the need for respect for women, providing them equity and social justice that all of us deserve. Mr. Adam, could you share that screen for us, please? Okay, no, I mean the one, the men were making decision on women reproductive system. Okay, if you would take a look at, Adam, I think you took it out. Could you get it back, please? Okay, if you look at all these people that are sitting there, guess what? They were making decisions on women. What do they know about women? But fast forward to this pandemic we're in, if you look at, thank you, Adam, you can take it out. If you look at the life, you see that men have done so many things wrongly. That's not to condemn them, but just to open the story to see how inclusion could help us do better. If you look at all these countries that is on the screen, these are countries led by women. If you go back to the pandemic we are going through now, COVID-19, you find out that these countries, these women had handled the situation much, much better than men. The question arises, why? I cannot answer that, but as legal professionals will say, you use the term reme. I can't get into the minds or the brain of people to know what they're thinking. But what I can tell you is, based on data, these women have done better than most countries ruled by men. So that's to say that we have seen the reason why equality, equity, and social justice for all is not just for a single purpose, it's for various purposes. And I have to reflect on one of our own, Ngozi Adichie, who said a couple of things about the danger of single story. And today, we have vast number of people who are with us, and the purpose is for us to see and hear various stories. The more stories we hear, the better we are equipped with what we need to forge ahead for a better future. So today is my honor to welcome our panelists. I have Maria Sanchez, sorry. I have Dr. Dekunle, and I have Dr. Mara Awuka. So without going too much, the way it's gonna go is that I'm gonna pose the question to these fantastic panelists, and then they will answer, and then we proceed. And the first question should be going to Maria Sanchez.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph, and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here with us.
Right. Maria, I know that you've been involved in so many things. You have, you're looking into genital mutilation, and you're looking at it from global standpoint. And I would like to know if the extent of this problem, could you mention maybe a couple of countries or how extensive it is?
So thank you very much for the opportunity to address this terribly important issue that is a global manifestation. And what Dr. Joseph is speaking about is female genital mutilation. And there are 200 million girls and women alive today that have been cut. Every 10 to 11 seconds, a girl is cut somewhere. And depending on the country where they're cut, it is usually on the dirt with rusty instruments, no anesthetic. Their mothers, their family members are standing nearby, holding them down. and subjecting them to the procedure, which is not only quite invasive. There's 4 different kinds of procedures of female genital mutilation, and I won't go into the details, but the first one involves cutting off the clitoris. The others are more invasive. And that just gives you an idea of how damaging it is. The others, types 2 and 3, involve not only removing more of the female's genitals, but then stitching up the openings so that there's barely an opportunity for urinating and menstruating, let alone having sexual intercourse. So it's damaging not only physically, but psychologically. There's all kinds of infections. Sometimes the girls bleed to death, and it has been perpetuated for centuries. And contrary to what people believe, it has nothing to do with religion. It happens in Muslim countries, it happens in Christian countries, it happens in Jewish countries, and nowhere in any of their holy books does it talk about female genital mutilation. So I am testing for what types of media is going to help educate people about this ghastly procedure and how we can help eradicate it in our lifetimes. Because if you want to talk about gender inequity and unjust, it's this, as far as I'm concerned. The United Nations is involved, the World Health Organization is involved, UNICEF is involved, all to no avail. So I apologize, my pup is barking. It's my passion. I've been working on this for over 25 years, and I'd like you to join me in helping make this stop.
Thank you so much. I particularly like how you ensure that you reflect religion, because oftentimes some people hide under various religions to do atrocious things. But I'm glad that you're making that clear. So for those who may hide, as some other people do in their various nefarious acts, you've made it clear that they cannot hide there.
Thank you.
Okay. This one will go to Tamara. Tamara, I know as a leader in various fields, I've spoken with you quite a bit, and I know that you are what I would say international woman, because you've been in every place. You can tell more stories than anyone can tell, because you've lived in various cultures. Can you briefly tell us about how you learned Germany and your mom's influence on that, and then proceed to telling us about your leadership, particularly in tech-related areas?
Absolutely. Thank you again for the invitation, and thank you everyone for joining. So real quick about myself, I was born and raised in Argentina, but my grandparents were from Spain, Ukraine, Poland, so quite a mix already. As I was a child, I attended a German school. As in Argentina, we received a lot of immigrants, so pretty much that's where my parents decided to send me. They were very much keen on opportunities. Their mentality was, if she learns German as a kid, English then will come as the business world will mandate it. So pretty much they already gave me an opportunity to get into different cultures, get mindsets that were different, and it sparked in a way my curiosity. I was talking to Dr. Joseph a few days ago, and I told him how I met people from different cultures throughout different experiences of mine, exchanged experiences with people from Tunisia, from Russia, Hungary, Italy. So very diverse mindsets and ways of thinking. And that in a way brought me to really question and to start my path in diversity and inclusion. So that's pretty much briefly about myself. I'm currently living in Berlin. So I moved here with my husband almost a year and a half ago, in a quest to find better opportunities, and in a way to also bridge some knowledges that I felt were more available here than from my students. I was a professor in Argentina, and that's pretty much my quest right now. I'm working in IT. I've always been working in talent management in the IT sector specifically. We've been working with the company that I'm currently in Women in Tech. As many of us know, this pandemic put a lot of topics in the scene, balancing work and family topics, finding a new career. Unfortunately, that's the case for many artists here in Germany who had to find a new way of sustaining themselves. And many went into IT and freelancing. That's pretty much where we are located. Several studies say that roughly 30% of tech women need or look for mentors and they don't really find them. So our work focuses on providing and showing careers and inspiring stories from IT professionals, from UX designers to programmers to project managers, that speak about how they manage to position themselves, how it's like to be the only women in the room, how it's like to deal with companies that maybe are more of a male-oriented dynamic, and show them that's possible, show them it's a career option, and encourage them, especially now that many are relying on freelance and IT, that how to really push them through, give them the opportunity to talk to people that understand them and then can help them get the right tools and position themselves. Dr. Joseph, you're muted.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Dr. Adekunle? Dr.
Yes.
Adekunle?
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. The question I have for you essentially is I know that you are dealing with so many issues, you wear so many hats, and sometimes I can't imagine what it would be like without people like you, pushing on all fronts, whether it's in politics, in youth development, looking at the future, and all other things you do. So to that end, I'm wondering if you could perhaps give us some sort of idea as to the type of things you are doing and perhaps challenges you face doing those things in a sort of male-dominated environment.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Onwe, my fellow panelists and the other participants on this forum. I've been working in Africa. I've worked in West Africa and partly in East Africa. The problem that we have here is this patriarchal system. You know, it's really very strong. And I work with both rural women and then urban women. I work with rural adult women and teenage girls, you know, in both rural and urban areas. And the kind of problems that we have with these people, they differ slightly. For instance, now, you know, when you look at let's start from the rural woman. When you look at the rural woman maybe is a farmer, you know, or somehow she's involved in the value chain, in the agricultural value chain, and you see that she cannot really profit maximally from her labor. So at times we try to connect them with markets, especially in urban areas, so that they can profit, you know, more from their labor, maybe as farmers, or maybe they are middle women who go to buy and they'll sell, or maybe they are involved in processing, agricultural processing, not really sophisticated form of processing, but you know, they do some degree of processing, maybe with their traditional technology. So we just try to help them to get, you know, to profit, you know, more from their labor. But one thing that I want to say concerning these women is that when you are talking of the issue of gender, you know, you cannot there is a degree to which you can intervene, because you will see some women who are actually, because we are talking of challenges now, you see that the situation of this woman is it needs some degree of intervention, but there is nothing you can do, because you may find the spouse, the husband, telling you that that is the way he orders his home, and that there is nothing anybody can come and can do to liberate the family, maybe the women in the family. And so you find yourself helpless because you need to appeal. We call the men, we try to appeal to them to give more space. I'm talking of the rural women now, to give more space to their spouses. So the only way you can achieve anything is just by appealing to these men. That's the only way. But if you say you want these women to claim their rights, you are not going to record any success at all. So that is a great challenge that one is facing. They are so entrenched in the traditional patriarchal system that the man will tell you that it's only what he wants in his home that can hold. And whatever he doesn't want, for instance, now, if we also talk about reproductive health to these rural women, and when you are trying to tell a woman that by the time you have had 9 children, you are okay, you don't need to go on having children, the woman will tell you that she doesn't have a say in it. It's the husband that determines the number of children she must have. If the husband wants her to have 13 children, there is nothing she can do. So what do? You just try to help to appeal to the man. And if he's the kind of person will not see reason, there's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do. Because at the end of the day, the woman may, even if the husband gets angry with her and the husband decides to take a step, you are trying to help somebody, you may end up, appearing to have ruined the life of this person if she runs into any trouble with her husband. That's also the kind of problem that we have with the girls. The problem we have starts from the educational system. We have an educational system that will penalize girls for teenage pregnancy, but will not penalize the boys. So when a girl, is a victim of teenage pregnancy, she loses the opportunity to continue with her education. The boy goes on with his own education, but because this girl is, she has committed an offense by getting pregnant, she's not allowed to go on with schooling. And so you find a lot of these girls, they are semi-literate because they cannot continue with their education. At the age of maybe 13, 12 in Nigeria, in the rural areas where I worked, the girls are already mothers, and they cannot continue with their education. So the intervention is we collect baseline data on all these problems of sexually transmitted infection. We collect baseline data on issues of teenage pregnancy to see the prevalence and other things of we collect data on abortion, procured abortion, but the abortion is through quacks. So we collect all the data, even deaths that we have, the fatalities, we collect data on all that, and we try to educate the girls in the rural areas. And then we meet with challenges too, because a lot of the parents will say, you are teaching these people how to have safe sex, that you are corrupting them. Even when we try to tell them that your children are endangering their lives, they tell us that we don't want anything about safe sex. We don't want anything that you are corrupting the children that are already victims of STIs or sexually transmitted infection. They tell us that you cannot tell them. So you have to go through the whoever is the traditional ruler. You have to try to do a lot of mobilization just to let them know what they can benefit from being educated on sexuality. So that's with the rural women. Now, when you come to urban women, they face problems of sexual harassment in their workplaces. Just like the last speaker was one of us mentioned this issue of sexual harassment. They face the issue of sexual harassment. Their bosses harass them. The ones who are undergraduates, many of us will have heard of what happened in Nigeria. Right now in Nigeria, there's a professor who is in jail. Because when this Me Too movement started, now Nigeria is trying to respond. We thank God for that. And now a professor has been jailed for harassing an undergraduate. But apart from, before all this, and this is just a drop in the ocean, we still have a lot of female undergraduates who are facing this issue of sexual harassment. It affects their education because it destabilizes them psychologically, and some of them are afraid to talk. They cannot discuss this issue with anybody. It's also happening in the public workplaces and private workplaces, especially private workplaces, because these private organization owners believe that they have the power of fire and hire, and they can do whatever they like. And so they go on harassing the female, not promoting them, threatening them with dismissal if they don't cooperate with them. And so with data, we try to disseminate our findings and empower the women that they have to talk. If you cannot seek redress within the organization, you can seek redress outside through the legal system, because we have international legal documents that are against sexual harassment, and we have national documents in all these countries, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in all over Africa. We have both international treaties and the national legal documents that are against sexual harassment. They just need to be aware. They are made aware of it so that they can seek redress whenever they fall victim to all this. So that is part of what we try to do. Then another important thing is most of our rural women, unfortunately, are excluded from technology. You know, it's sad when you know that there is a rural woman who cannot use WhatsApp or any of the apps on the phone. Some of them cannot even use the phone. When their relations buy them a phone, they need to call somebody to come and help them with the phone. So what we have been trying also to train local women in some of these technologies, how to use all these things so that they will not be excluded by technology, so that they can also communicate with others. It may look like this is not important, but when you look at the privilege that we enjoy, look at us, we are talking now across the globe, across continents. But imagine a woman who cannot even use a phone to make a simple call. So this, we train them in the use of technology. So these are all the things that we do. So basically we use research, you know, and advocacy with our research data and the community mobilization. And then we've also been carrying out research too on female genital mutilation, you know, so that we can advocate with people. We carried we carried out survey among the university students in the Gambia, and the result is shocking. Shocking in the sense that undergraduates believe that people must continue with female genital mutilation.
Thank you very much.
Shocking, because we expect that we'll have gotten beyond this. So I should stop at this point. I'm trying to. Okay, thank you.
All right. You've laid the problems, and at LDIG, we vision a world where everyone would experience equity and social justice. And when we say everyone, we mean every man, woman, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, or people of various sexual orientation. A future that will be free of the stigma, the stereotypes, and violence most of these people experience. And to that end, I'm wondering, since this year's theme was Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 world, how would you frame the kind of things that we can continue to do, which are obviously you've articulated, all of you articulated, how you are working on different fronts? How do we move forward? Because I feel personally that we cannot solve the problem alone. That's in part why organizations like SDIG exists, which focus on bringing people together and with their various ideas, various views to craft well-designed policies that could help people to tackle this problem without the usual loopholes people leave in order to continue to perpetuate the same problem. Otherwise, the problem of racism that is ubiquitous in our society, in fact, in the globe, will not be happening. The one of gender discrimination, as is obvious, will not be happening. And of course, all other things associated with ism. So my question to all of you, beginning with Dr. Adekunle, is, could you distill a clearly described way we can forge ahead in a way that is really sustainable, at the same time, bringing more people into our vision of peace, equity, and social justice for all?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Onwe. There is a lot of work to be done, but I also want to say that the women's movement has made a lot of gain too. You know, for instance, we know that guest education is improving when it comes to enrollment and retention, is improving greatly, you know, across the globe, but there's still a lot to be done. Let's start from the Gambia here. For instance, now in the Gambia, it's very sad that, you know, in a society that is male dominated and where women are given little chance, that university girls, undergraduates still have to drop out of school because of financial difficulties. We have the girls, you know, every time I see a girl drop out of school, it makes me, especially an undergraduate girl, it makes me very sad, because how many women get to that level? And now some girls get to that level, and because they cannot afford to pay their fees, they have to drop out. I also want to let you know that there's another problem with the education of the university education of the girls. Some 5 years back, there was, this is something that has left, you know, a kind of pain in my heart that I think is going to be very difficult to get healed. There was a girl that kept, you know, crying in my class all the time, and I was encouraging the classmates to help me, you know, talk to her to know what was wrong with her. To cut the long story short, not to waste time, she was being forced into marriage. They pulled her out of school, an undergraduate. They pulled her out of school, you know, and forced her into marriage.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I'm going to proceed to Maria. Could you answer this question, the same question, with focus on effective policies that could help us to move forward in a way that there will be no loopholes that you know very well. When it comes to making laws, they always have loopholes that they have these exemptions that continue to perpetuate what the policy is supposed to stop. So how would you tightly come with a policy that could push us on the right direction while closing all those conceivable loopholes?
So thank you for the question. And the answer is that it's complicated. And let's just talk about the United States. I know our visitors are from all over the globe, and I will get to that too. But in the United States, we made legislation in 1996 on a federal level that outlawed female genital mutilation. And that stood in place until 2018, when a federal judge threw it out and said that it was not written well, and it needed to have something else be done. So from October of 2018 to January of 2021, female genital mutilation was not illegal in the United States. And I'm smiling because I find it so ironic that we think that we're evolved and civilized and that we're global leaders and stuff. But legislation finally did get enacted in January of this year to make it illegal federally in the United States. But there are still 11 states and the District of Columbia that don't outlaw female genital mutilation. So even here in the United States, we're still struggling with it ourselves. Now, if you want to talk globally, then It's practiced in over 31 countries, and this is according to UNICEF. 44 million are girls below the ages of 15. Over half of those who are subjected to FGM live in 3 countries, Indonesia, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And some of them do have legislation, but even as the doctor alluded to, it gets around it. And unfortunately, it's women perpetrating it upon women. So there are some countries in the world, when they call it cut rate, meaning how much of their population is cut, Somalia cuts 98% of their girls. Guinea cuts 97% of their girls. Egypt cuts 91% of their girls. So the eradication of FGM, it's short for that, female genital mutilation, requires changes not only within the law and the legal system, but it requires a cultural shift. So there are activists that, as I've mentioned, that I've met, and obviously I don't know them all. There's a woman from Somalia that came to the UK at the age of 18. She had been cut. She went into a clinic to see about undoing that. She didn't speak English. The Somalian woman that they use as a liaison for her to speak with the healthcare worker refused to translate for her because she said, no, that's what we do in Somalia. We cut our girls. So a long story short, that woman got help because you can undo this procedure physically. She got married, she had 7 children. She does not cut her children. So their change has happened, albeit slowly, because if you're talking about 200 million women and girls alive today that have been cut, it's not happening soon enough. Now there's an organization in Virginia, I happen to sit on the board. She raises money to send it to 3 countries in Africa. And the caveat is the parents have to sign a document that's legally binding that says they will not cut their girls. In exchange, she provides them with tuition, books, and menstrual products, because that's also a problem. If they don't have menstrual products, they can't go to school. So they miss, 5 days out of every month because they're menstruating. And she has them go and have a physical exam once a year to prove that the girls aren't being cut. So there is little progress, but what I'm testing for in the PhD program is to find out what we can do that's going to be a tsunami of progress, because the little steps are helping a little bit.
Thank you. I like the word tsunami of progress, because quite frankly, sometimes I feel so disappointed as to the type of progress, or rather what some people will characterize as progress. I don't see it. Because if you go back to the Beijing 1995 and look at what was articulated then, I'm not sure it's very different from what is being articulated today. And the problem is still the way it is. So I will take your answer that is complicated. So let's move forward with Dr. Kamara. Dr. Kamara, I would like to hear from you, based on your previous involvement, how would you look at the issue of inclusion in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and how it may have factored into what you are doing or what we can learn from it?
Thank you. So yes, indeed, in Buenos Aires, I feel like many of the conversations that we're having here, it's a different topic when it comes to what kind of violence we have. But only today in the area where my husband's from, a girl committed suicide after being psychologically harassed by her ex-husband to actually kill herself. That's pretty much the kind of violence that's normalized in Argentina, unfortunately. So in order to talk about inclusion, in order to talk about people having their own voice, we need to first look into how we fight this normalization of violence, of harassment towards women. I've had, as I said, the opportunity to work with students that felt they needed a voice in someone with authority as a professor. 3 of them came out saying they've been harassed by a professor of them. Turns out there was actually 13 of them that had been through this. And it's not the only organization that I've been working with, and education institution in different levels. There are also different women that are forced out of the system, again, because they're pregnant, because of domestic violence. They're kept inside their houses by their partners. And then, of course, that means that when they manage to run away, because it's something shameful based on the view that they feel they're ashamed of it instead of really screaming about it. And they end up running away. They have no means of sustaining themselves. Many of them even have families to sustain. And we need to give them the tools to actually push themselves forward. Not only giving them a voice, but also giving them a system that allows them to make income, something as basic as that, that tells everyone that has been through this kind of domestic violence, and especially now in COVID times where many are trapped with their with violators, with people that harass them physically and verbally, and they cannot really go out because of the current situation. In order to really talk about inclusion, we need to really give people a voice and tell them, okay, this is not normal. This is not something that you need to shut up about. It's not normal, it's not okay, and it's not their fault. I've also been hearing this group of girls in the university, and they were saying that they started thinking it might have been based on what they were wearing, or maybe that they led to it because they were too friendly. We're talking about students that are 16, 17, 18. And if you already at that age start thinking that it's your fault and you brought it upon because you're too friendly or because of the way you dress, then how are they going to run away from it when they're facing this in their daily living? And I've heard it also from other cases that are closer to me, that they feel, well, but it's the person that he loves me. There's a reason why he's reacting like that. And then you see the bruises, and then you see the consequences, and it's just not right. And the system doesn't give them the laws and the contention they need. There are a lot of organizations, but going back to the case that we had today, this girl had actually made statements in front of the police several times, but since the guy never really used a weapon against her, they were just filed. And she just this morning was declared dead because he actually led her to suicide because of her depression, and because of the messages he sent her permanently. He sent them like this gilet thingies to cut herself and kill herself daily. So that's the kind of normalization that we're talking about, where this is seen like, well, he didn't really use a weapon, so there's nothing to do, or there's nothing to worry about. So I believe there's a need to really look into it as a society, saying this is not normal. You have a right to speak against it, and we give you the tools to get out of this system, this contaminated environment where you're living into.
All right, thank you so much. It's clearly evidence from all the experiences you have articulated, all of you've articulated. We also are becoming, we have to be aware of the stigma, stereotypes, and violence, and all these things cumulatively, how it's sustained and normalized, especially where it's consistently happening. Now that we've seen all these things, I will throw it back to you to ask your co-panelists a question you might want to ask, and this is going to be a rapid response session. So when you are asked the question, if you could answer in 1 to 2 minutes, that would be really appreciated. And who would go first? Well, let's go to Dr. Adekunle. Could you ask any of the panelists or your co-panelists or anyone you choose to a question?
Yes, my question is going to go to Maria, who has been working on the female genital mutilation. I want to ask what are your experiences in the effectiveness of government legislation in solving the problem of FGM in countries where you have worked. How effective?
Dr. Akule, thank you. Unfortunately, I'm going to say it's not that effective. When it gets criminalized, what happens is what happened here in the United States, like with prohibition, the alcohol just went underground. And so what's happening in countries that do legislate for it, they're going underground, and it's making it even more brutal because the instruments aren't as readily available because cutters, there's an industry of people who cut these girls who make money off of doing that. They're incentivized because that's how they're making a living and raising their families. So they agree to be complicit and to go underground. So what really has to happen is the culture itself has to change in order, because the legislation isn't working. Some countries that do legislate it are legislating that if it is medicalized, the procedure, it's okay. Meaning if they take them to a hospital to cut them and give them more compassionate treatment, that's okay. And of course, at the end of the day, what we're talking about isn't female genital mutilation. We're talking about child abuse. We're talking about violence against women. And when I first started in my journey, I was told as a white woman, it's none of my business. It's happening over there. And a lot of the activists who I know who are of color, they said to me, this is child abuse, Maria. It's everybody's problem. I don't care what color you are, get it done.
I echo that sentiment very strongly. It's not a matter of color. Some people often hide, just like other people who are so complacent as if they don't see this. And through their industrial means of acquiring wealth, they ignore the pain and anguish human beings are going through because of their behavior. So I compliment you for getting to those people, and those people who asserted their position that is not issue of color. So the question then becomes, how do we move forward? And thank you very much for your response. Now, Tamara, we're gonna be coming back to you. Oh, not you, I meant to say, you have the time now to ask any one of these fantastic panelists to answer your question, or both of them, whichever one you choose.
Thank you. So my question is to Dr. Adenkule. You were talking about involving also men into this decision because of like their power that they also have like towards women and how they make the decisions for them. Can you maybe pick like one or two techniques that you felt really helped you turn that mind, that biased mind of controlling female, their partners, female partners, that actually help you get them out of that mindset?
Okay, thank you so much, Tamara. You know, one cannot say that the success recorded, you know, has been so great, but with advocacy and, you know, continual advocacy, we are making progress, especially when you identify the institutions that have control over these men. For instance, religious institutions are very powerful. So when you go through the churches and the mosque, you know, when they start to have dialogue with the men, you are likely to record, you know, a great deal of success because they submit themselves to these institutions. So like Maria said, it's not really much of legislation, as if you legislate, they always have a way around it. We have a fellow professor in the university, you'll be surprised. She traveled, you know, just because she wanted to take a higher degree. She had a master's and she went for her PhD. Before she came back, she was married off. And there is nothing she could do. Nothing, because, you know, it's like the family system has power, they has control over you, and they tell you that you are going to marry, and the marriage was already settled between two families before she came back. So you'll be thinking that, okay, our education should make her to be free, but look at what happened to her. So the institutions that are really powerful to control these people, I think, are the religious institutions. So because they submit themselves to these institutions, and when you go through all those, and at times when you have to call the men together for reasoning among, you know, themselves, you allow them to reason, maybe you also record some success, but I've discovered that religious institutions have power over them.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have a quick question? I'm talking to the panelists, a quick one.
I'd like to ask Dr. Tamara, since you're talking about something that's also somewhat cultural with violence against women, what inroads have you made in terms of, it's not only just educating the one who's being abused, but the whole family system, if you will, or the system that's also contributing to the mindset of abuse?
Absolutely. So when it comes to this environment, when it comes to violence, it's a matter of bringing it to the table, raising awareness about it. So in Argentina, unfortunately, within the scholar system, you have very different approaches, whether it's public education or whether it's private education. So violence, either way, it's normalized. So violence against teachers, violence from the parents to the teachers. So when you already discredit the teacher, then you have no real role model to change the family setup in a sense. So unfortunately, it's something that's really rooted in the society from very early stages. So it's a matter of reinstating and regenerating this notion of who is our role model. And there's a lot being done from the media, it's a society that watches a lot of TV and looks up to public figures. So it's been the public figures that have been going out and saying, this is wrong, this is not normal, we have to speak against it in order to reinstate at a later stage, but yet someone that has not yet been discredited through violence, to actually change this and start reinstating a new normality that actually says violence is not right. Of course, accompanying all that, you have a lot of social movement, especially females against violence. This motto of not one less, that talks about no women gets left behind, everybody's important, everybody's remembered. So it's a combination between social movements and these figures that now have to act as role models to actually show the population there's an option.
Thank you so much, Tamara. And can we shift to Celia? Do you have questions from the audience for our panelists?
No, I think we have a lot of folks who had talked about their comments, especially I know Karen mentioned about her 3 teenage students who had dropped out this year because they didn't have childcare. There were a lot of good points made in terms of the discussion. I think I don't see questions, but these are amazing discussions that we need to have, these kind of discussions, especially when we don't have the right representation in the room. The kind of changes that we need to bring right from the boardroom to the bathrooms. That's what I always talk about, the changes that we can create. But yeah, amazing discussion. I'm just learning a lot as well as we go. These are, especially in other countries, we have never heard about a lot of these discussions. And thank you for bringing some good statistics and numbers, because these are actual, really real problems that we have. We don't have an accountability, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court or the decisions that are made at the state level, the legislature, that, we don't have that kind of accountability. And I think these are great. It's a lot of learning, for me and for the folks today.
Me too, Celia. And I have to say that I would want to hear from our distinguished panelists more as to how do we go from here forward. You as individuals are really doing some great things that are often not brought to the forum in discussions. You are like in your solo area, walking alone, and sometimes it's very difficult. And I will say this: if you, as we move forward, let's perhaps find a way to sustain that move, where we can always come and discuss this type of things, and perhaps begin to craft some ideas that could be used to educate those who are in powerful position to actually impact the necessary change. And it's only gonna occur with all of us working together. There's something about number, especially in democratic institutions. So I would urge you to, whatever idea you have moving forward as to how we can strengthen the cohesion among us as we move forward on these very vital issues. I think that George Floyd's death has opened new eyes on issues of race and racism, which is really ingrained in this society and in some other societies. But with that openness, I think people began to see what seemed as though only Black people saw prior to George Floyd, because people saw that through a common window and say, well, that's not me. That's not what I want in my world. And that ignited the fire that is still ongoing. But what I would suggest to you guys as you try to figure out how do we sustain this, so think of Frederick Douglass. During his time, Frederick Douglass worked in collaboration with so many people, women and England, here, everywhere he could. And most of his progresses in those days occurred as a result of the synergy associated with combined effort. So I would urge you, all of you, to think very deep and broad in context of how do we really begin to make a substantial move in a way that we will begin to impact others, and that those in police decision will hear us and will be compelled to do something, because the pain and anguish victims, sustain is just beyond the pale, and something has to be done about it. Some people will say, wait. No. You don't wait. If you are the one sustaining that pain, I'm sure you wouldn't say wait. Why would we listen to people who will say wait, that we're gonna do X, Y, and Z? It's an emergency. It ought to be done and done right away. So with that, I would say again, if you have ideas as to how do we move this thing forward, I would like to get in writing from you. And if you can verbalize some of them here, please, the floor is open to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Onwe. Something that just coming to me now is about the younger generation, or the emerging generation, or maybe people call them visionaries. Whatever we do in our little corner where we come across all these young people, both male and female, I think we need to try to reorientate them. You have a lot of them, they have fixed mindsets. They want to maintain the status quo. They want to do things the way their fathers, their mothers did things. And we have a lot of work, especially if you have the opportunity to be working with young people, maybe as a college or tutor or a university professor, just wherever you are working with them. Maybe you are working with them in a non-profit. Is a great opportunity to start to reorientate them, to make them to have a different mindset. Because I'm working with young people, especially girls, and I discovered that many of them, they don't have great ambitions. What am I thinking? What am I saying? It's just about maybe when after graduation, they just want to settle down, to start to raise families. When you talking of them getting into decision-making positions, they don't have any such ambition. All they want is just to, many of them don't even want to have a higher degree. They just want to settle into family life. And that's where our mentoring comes in. We need to mentor them, both male and female, to have a different mindset. I think it's really a great opportunity. Whether you are mixing with them, on the platform of a non-profit, or you are anywhere, we just must reorientate these young people and allow them to focus on higher goals, laudable goals, acceptable goals, goals that are compliant with inclusion, with social inclusion and diversity. I think we need to mentor them. Thank you.
All right. Let me go. I see some people whom I know so well and the work they are doing. I'm just gonna ask if they have a question that they should go ahead and ask that. And I'm gonna go to Sima. Can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Sure. Do you have question for our distinguished panelists?
Well, I mean, I'd like to make a comment and then get your ideas, because I know you're asking about what can be done. And a lot of times people think that, oh, I'm just one person, but one person talking to another person makes a difference. And my belief is that there's not just one thing, there's not just one answer, but that we need to look out as individuals what power we have in terms of, like, is there a group that we belong to that we can talk to? Is there a network that we could tap into? And I think that we need all the different forces to be working on this. And my question is, how do you see all the different forces coming together and working together?
Good question. And as you all know, SDIG provides a unique opportunity for people of all perspectives to be able to articulate their position. And in this kind of situation that we are all in sync with the fact that these things happening should never be happening to anyone, we will be able to come together in order to forge ways we can begin to impact things, whether it's in terms of what we may put out based on the research we are doing, or based on the experiences that we'll be gathering and learning from one another. As Celia said she's learning a lot, and Celia knows quite a bit. So for her to say she's learning a lot is an indication that we all could learn from one another and feed off from one another, and thus come with much stronger position on some of these things and ways forward. So that's taken, and we're gonna be looking at how do we move forward with the same kind of idea. And I have the Associate Vice President of Evan College in New York. Joanne, are you there? Joanne? Okay. We're gonna pass. Joanne is not here. All right. Does anyone else have a question that they may want to pose to our distinguished panelists? All right. I take it no. Okay. Well, time has actually gone a little more, but this is so fantastic. I really love this type of presentation. So I would like to say, if we could go into closing remarks and hopefully wrap it up, as soon as we can. But at the same time, I don't want anyone to leave here feeling like it's done. That's where most problems come from. We're gonna persist. We're gonna even come up and emerge stronger in terms of articulating these issues, figuring who can be able to help in moving it forward, because the pain is so much for the victims, and we cannot let that to continue. So on that note, let's go to closing statements. And let's go first to, again, Dr. Adekunle.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Onwe, my fellow panelists, and every member of the audience that has taken the time out to come and attend this program, because in our little way, we are contributing into creating the kind of world that we envision. I just want to continue to encourage all of us, as Dr. Onwe has rightly said, that people have observed that, you know, the task ahead of us is a very huge one, and we must give it everything that it takes, you know. We have to, this is a task that must be approached, you know, with different strategies involving the males around us. We want to say thank you to males like Dr. Onwe, like Mr. Adam, you know, when they're always there. So all of us must do something. We must all work hard to ensure we have to collect data and use our data for advocacy. We have to continue to have outreaches to talk to people. Let's involve them, and we have to role model what we want to see. You know, whatever we want to see, you yourself must exemplify it. You must be an example of what you may say. That we may say that when we look at it from the individual point of view, it may look insignificant, but actually, I will not deceive you. It pains my heart when I see people who advocate for human rights violating other people's rights. Because when you say you are advocating for human rights, and as an individual, you respect the right of others, then you are not, you know, modeling what you are advocating. So it's really very important, even though it's on individual level. But I believe that if all of us as individuals, if we make up our mind, that will be great examples, and then we put in all we can, we use all the strategies that we can adopt. At the end of the day, we continue to press forward. We definitely see the kind of world that we envision, where everybody is free, where no one is discriminated against, where people can actually have their rights respected. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Maria.
Thank you again, and thank you, panelists, for all that you're doing and how inspirational you are, because you're right, it takes all of us. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that female genital mutilation not only happens in the United States, there's 500,000 girls that have been cut that are in the United States, but also in the United Kingdom and the European Union. And the estimates are that there's 500,000 girls in the UK and another 500,000 in the EU that have been cut. So as you can see, this is a global problem. It's not just over there, it's everywhere. India cuts. So I just would like to say that knowledge is power. And if this is a topic that you didn't know about, now you can say that you do know something about it. And there are resources available, and there are organizations that are doing something about it. It just needs more of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, Dr. Tamara, could you give us your remarks, your closing remarks, please?
Thank you. So I also want to join everyone to thanking everyone here, and also my fellow panelists. It's been really inspiring to hear different perspectives and different problems that we're all addressing. I mean, from my side, normally when we talk about victims of violence and people that are in the situations, it can be really lonely sometimes. There's unfortunately many of us, and yet those victims feel alone. So building that contention, yes, sometimes it's easy to say, well, institutions should be there, the government should be there, everyone can be there. We talk about advocacy, we talk about mentors, we talk about giving people a voice and starting to break through that net of preconceptions that society has, and that has to start. And if everyone starts at least with one contribution, speaking up, really putting the question there, did you ever consider an option, or you do know you have an option, being there for those victims that are sometimes very lonely and don't know where to go, where to run to, they're afraid for any reason. Just inspiring others and being ourselves part of that contention network that we need to create. I think it's also a good point to bear in mind, just also being this advocates ourselves and being there for each other. After all, that's what humanity is for, just to a big network of people that work together towards a positive outcome in the future. You're muted, Doctor.
Oh, sorry. Thank you to all of you. I am very appreciative of this particular section. And I want to tell you that there are people who, without whom this wouldn't be possible. And some of you probably heard from them in one way or the other. And these are people that have worked with me to ensure that this thing, goes as smooth as it had gone. It's only gonna get better. And their names are Patricia Page, who is our manager, who is really doing some fantastic job. Sadly, whom many of you may have gotten in contact with, who has done tremendous things when it comes to technology. He keeps trying to get us to a level, and then as we try to get that level, he ups it. And I'm like, you're changing the rule as we try to get to to it. And we continue to do, and hopefully with time, we're gonna perfect it. And I wanna thank all of you for coming. And as I said, whatever ideas you have that will make us move forward, forward it to us, then we'll continue to forge our way forward. Hillary Clinton often says, together we succeed. Individually, it's at least a little more difficult. So I urge you to adhere to that point as we move forward. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.